I wanted to start by taking you back to when you were growing up, when you're a teenager in high school. Your sophomore year, you actually failed to make the varsity team in basketball. And is it true that around that time you were always the last person picked in the scrimmage?
One day I was 5'10", backup point guard, and the next year I was a 6'5" power forward. So I kind of came out of nowhere. So yeah, I didn't get to play a lot when I was younger.
Right, and it was, I think, around Christmas of your senior season that all of a sudden everybody started to take notice. But why all of a sudden in high school did you start pretty much practicing by yourself for several hours daily?
Well, two reasons. Number one, I had started doing some bad stuff. I started stealing some things. And I had started to hang with the wrong crowd. We would go to the local stores and start stealing candies and pens at the front. You know, one day we had a contest who could steal the most pens. I think I had 25 pens. So we did that probably all summer one summer.
Really?
Yeah, and I was like, well, actually what happened in truth, we almost got caught by the cops one time. We didn't get caught stealing the pens and the candy, but we figured out across town, every Sunday night, they would bring in a shipment of cakes for the week. So we went there every Sunday for a month or so. And one night, the cops came out of nowhere. And we ran back into the woods, and I could hear the cops saying freeze, and we were crawling on the ground. I probably crawled 100 yards on my knees in the woods.
Really?
And it scared the hell out of me, to be honest with you. And I remember being terrified with the cops bearing down on me. And I made up my mind that next day, I need to get myself together.
That was it?
That was it.
You didn't want that lifestyle?
I didn't want that lifestyle. I mean, because just when you're hearing the cops, you hear people just around you crawling, and you hear cops saying, freeze, freeze. And thank God they didn't shoot, obviously. But it was terrifying. I'm not even going to lie. I was scared to death. I mean, obviously I was a teenager, but I was still terrified. And that day I was like, no, this ain't for you. So I just started playing basketball. I wasn't any good. At this point, I'm still 5'10". But it kept me out of trouble. I didn't get to play a lot, but it kept me out of trouble. And then, like I say, the one thing that helped me the most as a player is playing point guard all those years helped me when I got big. Because a big guy who can dribble, you look at a guy like Dirk Nowitzki today and Kevin Durant, see, big guys don't want to move their feet. So when I became a power forward and I could dribble, that was the best asset of my game when I was a backup point guard. So playing by myself all those times really helped me when my talent grew.
And I think you ended up having a 37.5-inch vertical leap, which is extraordinary, especially for a guy that
I worked a lot. I worked a lot on my leg strength. But no, you said something earlier about Christmas. What happened in Christmas, we had a really good team, but we played against the best big man in the country. His name was Bobby Lee Hurt. Every college in the country wanted him. They were ranked number 1 4A, and we were ranked number 1 3A. And I think I had 30 and 20 against him. And that was actually the first time major colleges came after me because, number one, I told you, nobody knew about me because it happened so fast. So it wasn't a lot of people looking for a 6'5" center or a 6'5" power forward. But Bobby Lee was 6'10". He was the best big man in the country. And up until that game, I hadn't got any letters from major college. They were from small colleges and junior colleges.
And you knew that you had the talent, you just didn't have the opportunity to get that sort of attention.
No, I think they didn't think I could play against big people.
Yeah.
They're like, you can play a center. Because that was the thing. And that helped me in the NBA also, playing center, always playing against bigger people in college. Because, I always joke with people. They did a thing one year about the Auburn's men and women's team. We were the only college in the country where the starting center on the women's team was taller than the starting center on the men's team. I forget this young lady's name, but she was 6'7". Yeah. But I was the oldest. We were the only school in the country where the women's center was taller than the men's center.
That's funny.
Yeah.
You used to, when you were growing up, you had this 3.5-foot chain link fence.
No, brick fence.
Brick fence.
Yes.
Okay.
And the key to me, my leg strength, I want to get my legs as strong as possible. And you don't have any place to work out during the summer. And I used to just jump on that fence for hours every day, jump over it, just over it and over it and over it. And it built my leg strength up tremendously. Because I always tell people, it's not about how strong you are. You don't post up with your arms. No, it's really just your base. That's the key to having a great post-up position, your base. And jumping over that fence hours a day, I mean, I did that every summer for hours.
With the specific intent of helping you with basketball?
Yes, oh yeah. Because I wasn't stupid enough to play football. I actually did play football one day, the worst day of my life.
When you were in high school and being recruited for college, you were talking about incentives before, and you compared it to like lollipops at a doctor's office in terms of, how freely they were being given out. But because you weren't heavily recruited till later on in your senior year, you weren't the beneficiary of any of that. But what did you see in terms of,
No, I didn't see anything because I wasn't heavily recruited. But you hear all the stories from your friends who were heavily recruited. It's interesting. I wasn't even good enough to get free stuff. That's what was really funny about it. I mean, I never got a letter until I was a senior in high school. And it didn't bother me because, at this point, I'm not thinking about the NBA. I was just thinking about going to college for free. I'm not thinking about the NBA. I just want to go to college for free. Because what I told myself was, I'm not thinking NBA. If I can get a free education, I'm good. I'm going to make something out of my life. That was my only goal, to get to college for free. That's what I was telling myself.
What did you get from agents while in college?
I got some cash from agents, which, is interesting. I've talked to the NCAA. I think that should be legal.
Why?
Why? Because I want some money too. Everybody else making money. I want to go on dates. I want to go buy myself a new suit. I want to buy myself some sneakers. And I paid the agents back.
You think it should be legal to get it from agents?
Yes. See, Graham, it's interesting. The system is unfair. And there's this great debate about paying players. And I'm always looking out for the players. But how do you pay the players?
Yeah, how do you?
That's my point.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you pay, let's say Auburn. Let's take Auburn hypothetically. We don't have a good basketball program. Hopefully that's changing. Do we only pay the football team because they're the cash cow? Do we not pay the women's sports, swimming and diving? Do we not pay the lacrosse team, the tennis team? So we can't just pay the money earned in sports. That's unfair and it's sexist. You got to pay the women's sports. And I'm waiting on somebody to tell me a way we can do it. Because like I say, I want these players to be taken care of, but nobody can tell me a way to do it feasibly.
And what type of money are you talking about? Or just like minimum wage so the athletes don't have to then go out and get other jobs to support themselves?
Well, that's to say, I don't know the answer. That's my point. But let me tell you why. And I've talked to the NCAA. If they want a kid to stay in school, because most of these kids leave school for money, what's wrong with an agent letting me borrow some money so I can give it to my mom and I can do some stuff I want to do?
Well, because the agent has ulterior motives. It's not your own best interest generally. I mean, maybe.
But he's making me stay in school by lending me money.
I mean, you'd be better off maybe getting a loan from the bank, and the bank, as
the bank gonna charge me interest.
Right.
This guy, he's helping me. He wants me to stay in school.
He also wants to represent you when you're making.
And that's fine. Yeah. That's fine. Yeah, and I understand it. But I think more kids would stay in school. I do. Because kids always say, I'm leaving school because I just want the money. And they're not ready to play in the NBA at all. They're not ready. That's one thing that hurts our league. These young kids are not ready to play in the NBA. But if an agent wants to lend a kid some money so he can take care of his family and he wants to have some spending money, what's wrong with it? Yeah, of course he wants to represent that kid. I think I took money, if I remember correctly, I don't want to lie to you, I think I took money from 3 agents. And I'm talking I think the most I took was $20,000. I'm not talking about $1 million or $100,000.
$20,000 is a lot, though, when you have nothing.
I know.
Yeah.
And that made me stay in school another year. $20,000, that's not a lot of money. But I was able to do some stuff for my mother and grandmother, and I had some spending money. Okay, I'm cool. I don't have to go into the real world of the NBA after one college season.
Whether it be getting money from agents or some of the incentives you've talked about, hearing about, trips, meals, women, cash, whatever. How many of those same problems do you think still exist in NCAA athletics today?
They're always going to exist. They're always going to, because it's about winning.
You think it's just as bad today as it was?
It's probably worse today because there's more money at stake. There's going to be more cheating when there's more money at stake. The system is broken. The system is broken.
How would you fix it?
My biggest problem with the NCAA is graduation rates. It's not really fair for these people to make all this money, and these kids aren't going to get their degree. I mean, we just paid $11 billion for the NCAA tournament. $11 billion, that's what it be. And we only show basketball 10 days a year. We don't show any other college basketball. We bought the NCAA tournament. We gave them $11 billion. Those kids not getting any of that money.
And you've said before that one of your biggest regrets is not putting as much of an emphasis on education in your life while you were growing up.
Yeah, but I'm not worried about me. See, true. But my problem is I'm not worried about Kobe, LeBron, Kevin Durant, Charles Barkley, Michael Jordan, Carmelo. I'm not worried about us.
It's all the kids that think they're going to be them that don't.
That's my problem with the NCAA. Like, a lot of guys I went to school with didn't get their degree, and now their life has been a train wreck. Some of them have done great, but some of them are a train wreck. And if you don't get a college degree, or after 4 years, 5 years, whatever it takes, your life, you're fighting an uphill battle.
How do you encourage the NCAA or individual institutions to emphasize it more?
All we can do is talk about it. That's all you can do. We can start penalizing them.
Well, and because also you said when you were at Auburn, like the Auburn athletic department actually discouraged you from pursuing, academics.
Yeah. What happened was, I wanted to take some classes, real classes, and they're like, these some serious classes here. You could flunk these classes and be ineligible. They're like, there's some other classes you can take that won't be as hard, but we have a moral obligation to graduate these players. And that's the reason I started that debate. Listen, the system is never going to be fair, but these kids do get a free education, but they're not taking advantage of it. And there's two reasons why. Number one, a lot of them from single-parent homes. The parents got to do better. But also, they got to stop pushing these kids through school and making them take classes just to keep them eligible. That's not right. Like I say, I'm not going to, the system is what it is. Everybody's going to make a lot of money. But we have a moral obligation, because it's obviously had a huge negative effect on the black community. We got so many young black kids who think they're going to play pro sports. They're not going to play pro sports. But the system has a moral obligation to make sure that these kids get their education.
To what extent do you think the system's improving when it comes to that?
I don't know if the system is improving. It was awful when I was back in school. And it's, first of all, there is some personal responsibility. I want to acknowledge that. But if you ask a 18-year-old kid, does he want to stay eligible or take classes so he can flunk out of school after a quarter semester? Of course he want to take bogus classes.
Yeah.
But the schools have to do a much better job of holding these kids accountable, making sure they get their degrees. And not only that, make sure their degrees are worth something.
Right. So anybody that's seen you on TV knows your personality and would probably expect this to be in line with it, but you've never been afraid of getting on your head coaches over the years, whether that be in college or with the 76ers or even when you were, I guess you could kind of say, trying out for the Olympics with the Olympic head coach Bobby Knight. Tell about when he was 15 minutes late for a meeting.
I respect Bobby Knight as a coach because, number one, he's a great coach and he graduates his players. That's the most important thing. But it was an honor to try out for his team. But he gave everybody, like if a guy was a minute late, he would blow a gasket. I mean, he would blow a gasket. So, my personality is not going to change. And I says, he comes in about 15 minutes late. And I said, hey, Coach, what time you got? And he kind of wanted to laugh, you could tell. And then he says, Barkley, let me tell you something. You ever been in the Army? I said, no, sir. He said, the privates never tell the general what to do. And it was cool, though. But like I say, I just had a little fun with him. But that guy's a great coach. Like I said, the thing I respect about him the most, he graduates as players. Because that's the most important thing.
Why do you think you're able to pretty much get away with whatever you want to say?
I pick my battles very carefully. Everything's not worth arguing over. But when something serious come out, I'm not afraid. And I think I do have a little leeway because I have basketball money. Like a lot of guys can't be honest and straightforward on television because this is their job. Because people don't really want to hear the truth.
But even during your career, you might have been during your NBA career, you might have been making basketball money, but you still had endorsements. And
yeah, because
a lot of people
respect the truth. Because the one thing that people say to me, and it really means a great deal to me, it means a great deal to me. He says, I might not agree with you, but at least I think you're going to be honest and you're going to be fair. Even players, when I talk to them, when I criticize them, they're like, okay, I can understand. Because, players and coaches call you all the time if you say something. That's like players and coaches call you all the time if you say something. But I always tell them, was it true and was it fair? And as long as I'm going to be truthful and fair. And I think the demographic that I want for myself is, I want my group, whether they're old or young, I want them to know, like, I'm going to always be honest. I'm going to always be fair. I don't have a hidden agenda. One of the reasons I don't do a lot of sit-down interviews is, number one, I don't like talking to the press, number one, about myself. I do a lot of talking to the press, but it's about the game and things like that. See, because I think a lot of reporters are biased. They have I watch a lot of television. I watch a lot of sports. And I think some of these reporters, they have their guys, and they have guys they don't like. That's why that bothers me. Two exact guys can't do the same thing, and because one of them is your friend, or you like him, or you don't like the other guy, you can't have different opinions. The one thing the players tell me, and it means a great deal to NBA players, they said they like me. That means a great deal to me, because I do have to criticize them sometime. But they can be sure of one thing, I don't have a hidden agenda.
You've spoken about this a little bit before, but when you were growing up, really poor, the majority of the rich people really didn't give your family the time of day. How did that impact how you felt you would act if you were ever rich?
Anytime I meet somebody, I try to always make eye contact because they took the time to come say hello to me. I hate guys who shake people's hand and like, hey, nice to meet you too, and they don't even make eye contact. And I got celebrity friends who do it. It drives me crazy. It only takes a second to make direct eye contact. And listen, I mean this, I'm not just saying this because I'm in show. There's 5 important jobs in the world, in my opinion. Teacher, fireman, policeman, doctor, somebody who's in the armed service. Those are selfless, honorable people. I play basketball. I don't take myself that serious. We play a silly game. It's a great game. I love basketball. Basketball has given me every single thing in my life. I mean, think about it. I'm 51 years old. I've never had a real job. And I've hopefully got more money than I'm ever going to need, never able to spend. I mean, it's amazing the doors that basketball has opened for me. I'm 51 years old, and when you're growing up in the projects in Leeds, Alabama, there's no way you think you're going to be sitting here talking about your life or seeing some of the stuff I've seen. You say to yourself, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And like 51 years later, I'm like, wow, this is amazing. I mean, I've had such an amazing life. I truly mean that. I mean, I can't believe. Sometimes I just because it's like you always got something to do, so you don't have time to sit back and analyze. But like sometimes when I'm doing something, I was like, wow. I was in my apartment today, and I got this picture from the White House, and I'm standing in the Oval Office with the president, And I was like, wow, that is pretty amazing. And I just happened to look at that picture this morning, and I was thinking, like, how many kids in Leeds, Alabama, who grew up poor and their moms are gonna ever be standing in the Oval Office with the President of the United States? I mean, you're like, wow, are you kidding me? I mean, it's crazy.
What's that like for you when you actually take a step back and
It's
kinda
amazing.
consider like
Yeah.
that moment specifically?
I mean, I could think about that one. One time when I was playing for the Rockets, Bush Senior, Mr. President Bush Senior, was sitting beside me watching a baseball game, and he's asking me, "Would you like a hot dog?" And I was like, "This is surreal." And he was such a nice man, but I'm just sitting there, and he asked me, and I was like, "The President of the United States just asked me if I wanted a hot dog," and like, it was so surreal to look back at those things in my life. But you know, it's little stuff too. You know, I tell people, I've had 5 people want to meet me before they die. Little kids.
Really?
With the Make-A-Wish. And I got to tell you something. It's one of the most humbling, sad, happy, terrific things that you can go through. I mean, it's like your emotions are all over the place. I mean, because you're like, wow. And you want the kid to enjoy the experience, and they're so excited, and they just want to take pictures with you and sign autographs, and you spend like 15, 20 minutes with them, and then you're trying to be upbeat and jovial and happy because you want them to really enjoy that experience. And the parents are so excited to be there, and then in the back of your mind, like, I'm never gonna see this kid again. And it's a heart-wrenching thing. But to be able to do something like that, it's like I say, it's really cool. It's really sad. Your emotions are jumping all over the place.
There was an incident with you in the NBA that's obviously famous that you really credit with having had a positive impact on you.
The spitting
moving
incident.
forward. Right. I mean, you were, trying to spit on like a heckler who.
I actually wasn't trying to spit on anybody,
okay.
to be honest with you. But it was just stupid.
Why do you say that affected you, though, more than really anything else you did in the NBA?
Well, because when I first got to the NBA, I was angry. I was angry at Miss Gomez. Miss Gomez is my high school Spanish teacher.
Whose class you flunked and you didn't graduate?
I flunked that. And I didn't get to graduate. I had to go to summer school.
Yeah.
So I hated Miss Gomez. I was mad at my dad because my dad, he lived in California. He came to see me graduate. And they didn't tell me right before I wasn't going to graduate. So he just kind of reamed me pretty good. And I tell to myself, this is the last time I'm ever going to let anybody control my life. I'm going to stick it to Miss Gomez. I'm going to stick it to my dad. I'm going to stick to my high school. I'm going to stick it to everybody and shove it up their face. So my first X amount of years, man, like when I was in college, I was just going to kick everybody's ass. I was just going to maul anybody that got in my way. And then I get drafted to the NBA. So then I still got the same attitude. And then I forget when the spit incident happened. It was probably my 3rd or 4th year at the NBA. And I remember I got suspended, obviously, and should have. And I remember sitting in a hotel room. And I was like, dude, what the hell is wrong with you? What are you so angry about? The next couple of days I sit down and I said, okay, it wasn't Miss Gomez's fault you flunked Spanish. Okay, let that go. And then my dad, I says, hey, it didn't work between your mom and dad. He did fly from LA to Alabama to see you graduate, and you, big dummy, didn't graduate. Okay, that's on you too. Like, okay, you don't have to be mad at your high school. You flunked every time I played basketball, I said, just let people see your talent. You don't have to be mad at anybody else. And so that was the turnaround for me. Because, and I've used this analogy, whether you Ron Artest, Mike Tyson, Dennis Rodman, guys I respect as people. But I think they played like I did, on the edge. But I think if you play sports on the edge, it's not a matter of if you go off the cliff. It's just a matter of when.
You mentioned your father and graduation, and
Yeah.
your father, not really being around. Your mother said in your autobiography that he just couldn't cope with the responsibility of fatherhood. I think he left when.
I don't even remember when he left, to be honest with you. But I want to make this clear. We're great today.
Yeah.
We both made some mistakes. Hey, listen, I shouldn't have been angry at him. Like, sometimes it just doesn't work. That doesn't mean you get mad at your dad if it didn't work. So I was wrong on that point, but he could have been a better father, but today we're cool.
What was the most difficult part of that relationship for you to kind of become at peace with, to move forward?
The most difficult part is he came back in after I was already Charles Barkley. And I didn't think that he deserved to come in on that part. Where we would play the Lakers, have hundreds and thousands of people screaming at my name, adulation, things like that, playing against the Magic, Kareem, James Worthy, and all those guys. I didn't feel like, because he wasn't there when I was poor.
Right.
That was the toughest thing. Like, it's kind of like anybody. Like, you come in for the parade, not for all the stuff to put the parade together.
Do you remember some of the tough times? Like, I know in the book, you wrote about how, in the book you wrote, many years ago, but you wrote about how I think you were in like 10th grade and he called you up, one Christmas saying he's sending a present home.
I think things like that was very disappointing because he would always say he was going to send stuff. But I think in fairness to him, he got married and had a different family. But it was frustrating when he said that he was going to do stuff and didn't do it. That was very difficult, to be honest with you. Because like I say, man, we were poor. I had a single mother with 3 kids, 3 boys, and kids, as we know, they're expensive. But I wouldn't change anything about my childhood because Lee's is a wonderful place to grow up. I look at some of these kids who grew up in a big city. That's a totally different animal than being in a small town, one school. You go to school with the same group of people your entire childhood. Like, I know everybody at my high school. We started in the 1st grade together and went to the 12th grade together. And that's why Lee's will always be a special place for me.
I think your mom was 21 when she had you, so, in addition to your mom, your grandmother was instrumental in raising you. What do you think growing up in the projects in Leeds, Alabama taught you?
Well, I don't think it taught you anything because, you don't know it when you're in it. I didn't know we were poor. I knew it now, but I didn't know it. I think what growing up in the projects meant for me was, because it wasn't, because Leeds projects ain't like Chicago and New York projects. We didn't have a lot of violent crime and things like that. But I think the one thing, when your mom's a maid and your mom is at a meat packing factory, it teaches you how to work hard. You're like, I've never had a real job, but I think it's easy for me to say. I think I would have been good at a real job because, packing meat and cutting up animals every day is no picnic, and definitely cleaning people's houses is no picnic. I think the one thing it taught me was just about hard work. I mean, listen, like I say, can you imagine cleaning other people's toilets? That's hard work.
Right.
And cutting up animals and packing it and freezing it, that's hard work. I actually thought dribbling a basketball was pretty easy, to be honest with you.
I think it was your uncle Simon who
Yes.
Was dying, had terminal cancer, and he said something to you that really kind of impacted your relationship with your dad, right?
My uncle had said, hey, listen, you and your dad need to at least be friends. And I thought that was, and I agree with that. I do agree with that. Because like I say, when your mom and dad gone, like they tell me, even if you're estranged from them, it's still somewhat traumatic, to be honest with you.
How do you think your family dynamic impacted you as a parent later in life?
I want to be a good father. I try to do the best I can. It's been difficult at times because, you're always traveling. But I think she's a great kid. She's a great kid. I think that she understands what I expect out of her, because when you are given, I forget the saying, for too much is given, much is expected. And she's had a great life. And I want her to understand that. And I give an example. As we speak, she just went to Africa. And she's going to be there a month teaching young kids English and how to do personal hygiene. And I'm so proud of her. Number one, I'm terrified, worried. But she understands, like, I want her to do great things. I do. I want her to do stuff like that. It's important for me. It just can't lived a good life.
Your weight. I think you weighed 284 pounds before the 76ers drafted you. And
Closer
they wanted,
to 300.
Okay, and they wanted you to at least, I heard, get down to 275 before the draft. You end up getting down to 272 pounds, and then what happens?
Well, back in that day, the leagues had a hard salary cap. So I visited the Sixers a month before the draft because I had already been down in Houston working out because I was 300 pounds in college. I was between 295 and 300 in college. So I had been down in Texas working out, and I was down to 282. And I went to visit Sixers a month before the draft. And they said, you weigh 282, we'd like for you to get to 275. I said, sure, no problem. So I go back down to Houston. I'm actually around down 270, to be honest with you. And my agent says, hey, we need to talk about this Sixers situation. I said, what's the situation? He says, they have a hard cap in the NBA. And you're going to have to get like the minimum, 1 year, $75,000. I said, I didn't leave college for $75,000. So this is 2 days before we got to stop back in Philly before we get to New York for the draft. So I said, well, we got to make sure the Sixers don't draft me then. So we went on a 2-day eating binge. We got up the first morning. I had like 6 pancakes, bacon, washed it down with a vanilla shake. Then we went to lunch. I think I had like 4 or 5 pieces of Kentucky Fried Chicken, some mashed potatoes, some coleslaw. Then we went to dinner someplace. I had like a T-bone steak, had a baked potato. And then the next day did the exact same thing. So we fly to Philly. I get on the scale. I'm like 302. I'm like 302. And Harold Cass cursing me, you
That's the
fat,
owner of the 70s.
Yeah, you fat, lazy, blah, blah, blah. Just get out of here. Get out of here. And we take the train up to New York. And I got to tell you something. If people take a good look at the tape, and when they said with the number 5 pick, the 76ers take Charles Barkley, the look on my face is, are you kidding me?
You weren't smiling.
I wasn't smiling because I was like, I left college for $75,000. And I remember telling my agent, I said, oh my God. But in fairness to the Sixers, they ended up trading 2 guys. They traded 2 guys, and my first contract was 4 years, $2 million. So I'm off and running then.
Did you really, in college, you said this somewhere, so I don't know if it's true or not, that over like the first 200 days of college, you ordered pizza 160 times?
That's somewhat true. I'm not sure. It was close to 70, 80, 100 times. But that was only because what happened was, meals are on a set schedule. And
you can't justify that.
Yes, you can. You're hungry. What happened was we didn't finish practice in time to eat most of the time, to be honest with you. By the time you practice and take a shower and relax, it's too late to eat. Or you get there and all the good stuff is gone, and by 10, 11 o'clock, you're hungry. So we ordered pizza pretty much at least 3 or 4 days a week, no question.
What's amazing is when you were born, you had anemia and you only weighed 6 pounds, 12 ounces. What's the, in terms of weight, the largest you played at, and then like post-career as well?
The college career, I was between 290 and 300 the entire time. And, the thing that most people don't understand, the biggest influence in my basketball career has been Moses Malone. And I pulled Moses aside, and I said, Moses, why am I not getting to play? And Moses, he's really brutal. He said, you fat and you lazy, young fellow. You fat and you lazy. I'm like, oh, I'm fat and I'm lazy. He said, you need to lose some weight. He says, you want to work hard, I'll help you, Big Mo, I'll help you. And he was great. He says, and I think at that time I was like 290. He says, I want you to lose 10 pounds. So I lose 10 pounds, I'm 280. He said, I want you to get to 270 now. I get to 270, and now I'm like, okay, you can tell I'm in shape now, and I'm getting to play. He says, get to 260. At this point, I'm starting really to kick some butt. I'm starting to play well. You can play, obviously, extended periods of time. And he says, I want you to get to 250. I'm really rolling right now. And then he said, get to 240. He said, I want to experiment. And I got to 240, but I didn't feel strong and explosive. He says, no, 250. 250 is your weight. And that's what I played my entire career at.
How much did the weight stuff actually got to you, at least in college? I mean, people gave you all sorts of nicknames.
It didn't bother me. Well, what happened was Auburn, we were trying to attract attention to the program, so we took the Sports Illustrated picture with me, all the pizzas and things like that, because we were doing anything to get attention to the basketball program. Because, we weren't any good. I think my first couple of years, Auburn basketball was ever mentioned. And then my third year when we started to get together, me and Chuck Person, that's when we made it to the NCAA tournament. I'm very proud to say that I was on the first Auburn team to make it to the NCAA tournament. That was my goal when I got there. I says, we can make it to the tournament. We can make it to the tournament.
The 92 Dream Team, you guys were, I think, beating teams by an average of 44 points a game. You never called timeouts. You were the team's leading scorer. And you said, those Olympics specifically helped you psychologically because going into them, you thought, maybe you did suck, in your words.
Well, what it did for me was when you're a great player on a bad team, it's mentally deflating.
And you were on a bad team.
Yeah. It was very mental. It's tough to go play every single night and know you're going to lose. And it's just tough. And then when I got picked for the Dream Team, it gave me such a rush. And the game was very easy. The better players you play with, the easier the game was. Even if you go back and look, when I got traded to Phoenix, I was a much better player in Philly, but I didn't get the MVP until I went to Phoenix and had a better team around me. Because when you play with better players, the game is easier.
What was the environment like when you guys went to get your Olympic IDs when you got to Barcelona?
It was like, I tell people, man, it was surreal, to be honest with you. Because, I try to tell people, going into the Olympics, we didn't know we were going to win games by 60, 70 points.
Yeah.
We were like, dude, if we lose, this could be huge. This will be a big deal if we lose. And we're like, yeah, it is. Because we didn't realize that till we got there. Because when we would go to the games, there would be 5 to 7, 10,000 people standing out there to watch me walk from here to that fireplace. When we left the hotel, it'd be 10,000 people there someday. And they only got to see you walk from here to that fireplace. And they had a helicopter above the bus.
Guys with Uzis.
They had two motorcycles on each side with Uzis, and they had a police car in front and a police car in back. And as we're driving along the highway, there's hundreds of people just waving at us. It was so crazy. I mean, like I said, when you leave the hotel, there's that 10,000 there. Like I said, you got all this security, and when you're driving on the highway, there's people just standing there holding signs. You're like, wow. Because there's no way you can anticipate that.
And I think it was on the flight back to the States, you're over the Atlantic, that just the totality of the experience started to really sink in for you. But how do you think those Olympics impacted the game of basketball globally?
I think it changed the world. Because some of these guys, I talked to them today, whether it's Ginobili, whether it's Dirk Nowitzki, Tony Parker, guys like that. They said it made them want to play basketball. I mean, so it was huge. I mean, it was huge from a worldwide standpoint. Because if you go back, we didn't have many European players, any foreign players in NBA back then. It all started after the '92 Dream Team, and then some of the players who were great overseas, they came to the United States. We all knew those guys because we had played against them before.
Yeah.
So it was cool that they came over here.
And people forget that was the first time NBA players were allowed to compete for their country in the Olympics.
And the thing that was unfair, because we would watch, because we started losing in international competition because they were using pros and we were using college kids. And we'd see Sabonis and Drazen and all those guys just killing these college kids. And we're like, those guys shouldn't be playing against college kids. They should be playing against us. But after that, they all started coming over here.
Was it weird when you guys were flying back knowing that there was never going to be the opportunity for that group of guys to play together again?
Well, I think what happened was we realized that something amazing had just happened. And I will tell you this, too. And I've said this, everybody should go to the Olympics one time in their life. I don't know if you've ever been to the Olympics. It's the coolest event in the world. And television doesn't do it justice. Television does not do it justice. It is amazing. And so it's just amazing. And when they play the national anthem, it's one of the few times in my life I've gotten goosebumps. I mean, when they play that national anthem, they put that gold medal around your neck, it is one of the coolest things. I tell people, man, it is surreal.
I want to go back to the NBA and your relationship with Michael Jordan specifically, which also is, kind of famous. You credit him really with having a bigger influence on your career than anybody, and have said that he's helped you in ways that people could never understand. How so?
Well, I think that Michael has always been like a brother to me. Michael is a great businessman. If you go back and look at it, Michael was probably the first jock businessman. Magic Johnson's done some tremendous things. But Michael Jordan is probably the first jock businessman. Developing his own brand. He taught me about stock options. Because I was making a nice chunk of change from Nike.
And he saw that.
And he says, stop taking so much cash, take stock options. And if I remember correctly, I think I quadrupled my money because the Nike stock split several times. And it was really a great business decision. And he taught me to learn to take care of my money and to be a businessman. This is a business. I mean, I don't have his type of money, but I think I've been very successful with my money because the key is you got to make money grow. You can't spend it all. And I think being around him has made me a better businessman. But he's been a great mentor to me in the business world, and he's been a great friend.
How do you think you've been a good friend to him? Because you just laid out.
I think I'm a great friend to anybody. And what I mean by that is I don't judge my friends. Lance Armstrong's a friend of mine. I talk to Lance not all the time, but I check on him periodically, and I'm going to be his friend. That's my job as a friend. My job is not to judge him. And I think I'm great with all my friends like that. I don't judge them. Because, listen, I've done plenty of stupid things. I don't want them to judge me. But when you're in the limelight, everybody takes shots at you. And I feel for that kid.
So 93 NBA Finals.
Yes.
Your son stunned the Bulls to bring the series back to Phoenix. The Bulls are up 3 games to 2, and you say to Michael that you don't want to play golf, cards, or hang out when you get back to Phoenix.
That's
then what happens?
One of the biggest misconceptions ever.
Really?
I've heard that story. Me and Michael never played golf or had dinner during the finals. I mean, we understand it was a competition. And I've heard this before, that Michael took me out and buttered me up on the golf course and at dinner. And I was just kind of laughing. And we always laugh about it.
These are big Sports Illustrated, I read that in an SI profile.
I know I like the way you read. Don't believe everything you read.
Right.
But we were friends during and we were friends after. But this notion that he took me, I heard the same thing about Patrick Ewing. He took us out to dinner to butter us up so we wouldn't compete. First of all, if you know Michael, there's no person you want to beat more. There's no person you want to beat more than Michael. Let's get that straight out the way.
How bad did you want it then?
Well, I just want to win a championship. But he can talk trash with the best of them, so you wanted to beat him. But they were a better team, and we gave it everything we had. They were awesome.
Does that still get to you this day?
It still gets me a little bit, to be honest with you.
It does?
Yeah, because I want to be the deciding factor, to be honest with you. That's what all great players want. You want to be the decider.
What would you say is the most satisfying moment from your career?
Well, I think a couple things. I think when the Sixers retired my jersey, that's an emotional thing. And when the Suns retired my jersey, that's a very emotional thing. Anytime you get your jersey retired, it's pretty cool. And you try not to cry. That's the most important thing.
You get a little emotional now, even talking about it.
I think going in the Hall of Fame is very deep, too. That's very deep. Because if you get to the Hall of Fame, man, there's so many people you just want to thank. Because you don't do this thing alone. So those are probably a couple of the greatest moments of my life.
You said before you're embarrassed by the current state of the NBA. How true is that today?
The NBA has not been really good for a long time. It started when we started letting high school players come to the NBA. Now we're taking kids out of college after 1 year. Those kids need to stay in school. It didn't hurt Magic Johnson to stay in school a couple of years, did it? It didn't hurt Larry Bird to stay in school for 3 years. It didn't hurt Michael Jordan for staying in school for 3 years. Think about this. The 5 greatest players, in my opinion, Michael, Oscar, Kareem, Wilt, and Bill Russell. All 5 of those guys stayed in school the minimum of 3 years. It didn't hurt them, did it? And I don't understand why now all these kids, I've got to leave school after 1 year. I mean, I know your agent wants the money, but you don't have to leave school after 1 year. That drives me crazy.
You rank these 3 just in terms of pure ability. Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James.
Well, I think Michael's the greatest. I think LeBron, you have to give Kobe the edge because he has more championships.
But not taking championships into just pure ability.
Probably LeBron second, because Michael and Kobe are similar. Kobe's not Michael. But LeBron James, we've never had a player like him. Like Michael and Kobe, both 6'6", 230, perfect bodies, amazing. We never had a guy who was 6'8", 260, 270, first of all, who looked like he weighs 220, who can outrun anybody, who can outjump anybody. We've never had a player like that. It's just like as great as Dirk is, Kevin Durant, they're similar. They're both 7-foot jump shooters, great on the perimeter. But like LeBron is such a amazing freak of nature. It's an honor and a privilege to watch him play.
Your vices. What do you like about gambling?
Well, winning. It's exciting to win money.
Is that what? Is it the winning that you?
Yeah, it's
like?
winning.
Okay.
You know, people out here. I hear all these people talk about you just like the action. No, I like the money actually, and it always sucks when you lose, but it's a great feeling when you win. I think that the thing that I conquered about my gambling was I changed my mentality. I'm not trying to win a lot. I'm just trying to win. You know, Graham, I've won $1 million probably 4 or 5 times. Well, I won $1 million.
In a single day.
In a single day. But I've lost a lot more millions in a single day.
How many times do you think you've lost $1 million in a single day?
At least 10 to 15, somewhere in there. And like I say, I probably only won $1 million 5 or 6 times. But I've lost $1 million, somewhere between 10 and 20. I can't give an exact number because we're going back to the 80s.
Do you think it's ever gotten out of hand?
Yeah, no questions got out of hand. But I quit for like 2 years. And I remember talking to my friends one night. My friends have to be brutally honest with me, or they can't be in my inner circle. And they said, "Oh, gambling's not your problem. You're just an idiot." And I said, "What does that mean?" They're like, "Charles, gambling is not your problem." They says, "We have been sitting at the table with you, and you've been up $300, $400, $500, $600, $700,000, and we says, let's quit. And you developed this thing where you're like, I've got to win $1 million." They says, "When we go gambling, if you win a couple $100,000 or $50,000, let's quit and go have fun. Let's don't try to break the casino because you can't break the casino." And since I developed that mentality, gambling is a lot more fun to me, to be honest with you.
What's the most you've ever seen one of your friends lose gambling?
Well, $1 million, at least $1 million. I mean, listen, we got friends who got money. What's the one thing about casinos? They'll keep giving it to you.
What's the most you ever tipped at a casino?
Probably $75,000, $100,000.
Why?
Because I won almost a little over $1 million. The dealers they split those.
It's a lot of money, regardless.
I won a lot.
Yeah.
So you always tip the dealers.
Why have you said your "I'm not a role model" commercial's the greatest thing you've ever done in your life?
Because it started to debate. Because if you go back and look when it happened, it comes up all the time, too, when the term role model comes up. It started a national debate. And let me tell you something. When I went to Nike with this commercial, they was like, "This is going to be huge." I said, "That's why I want to do the commercial." 95% of the letters Nike got, the 76ers got, loved the commercial.
Yeah. How did the reaction and response you got compare to what you were expecting?
I actually thought it would be like 80-20, to be honest with you.
80 positive? Okay.
Yes. Because listen, I knew the parents. Because first of all, it became a joke. I said, I'm the only guy in the world who ever got hate mail for telling kids to listen to their parents. In the beginning, I said, just because I could dunk a basketball and dribble a basketball, I shouldn't raise your kids. But at the end, I said, parents are role models. And that became the joke around the NBA. You know, I do this little science experiment, Graham, when I speak at schools. Like, let's say I'm at a white school. I said, how many of you kids want to play pro sports? Less than 10% raised their hand. I said, what do you want to do? I want to be a doctor. I want to be a lawyer. I want to be an engineer. But when I go speak at predominantly black schools, 90% of the kids want to play sports. 90%. There's a couple like, I want to be a doctor, which makes me really proud. But 90% of kids, when I speak at black schools, Our kids are brainwashed to think they can only play sports and be entertainers. Like, you got a better chance of being a doctor and a lawyer than playing in the NBA. I tell you, that's 400 players in the NBA. What are the chances you're going to be one of the 400 best players in the world? Like I say, and I'm not trying to bash their dreams. I wish everybody could do it, but you have to also be realistic. Right. And that's all I talk to. I talk to them all about education. I said, I would love for y'all to play in the NBA. It's a great life. It's a great living, but you're not going to play in the NBA. Who are we kidding?
You've donated millions of dollars of your own money over the years to worthy people or worthy causes. What out of everything you've done has been most meaningful to you personally?
When I get a letter from my kids, the $3 million I gave, the way I did it was for tax purposes. I just can't write a check for $3 million. That's a lot of money. So I gave Leeds, Auburn, and other schools, Cornerstone, and Birmingham, I gave each one of them $100,000 for 10 years. And the way it works is, if you keep doing well in school, you get more money. And every time I go visit my mom, I got stacks and stacks of mail from these kids thanking me for the scholarship and thanking me for helping them more and telling me what they're going to do in life and how their school is going. There's nothing better.
Is there one that sticks out the most?
Not really. Not one to stick out the most. I got 3 nieces. I got 4 nieces. And I've been back to a couple of their graduations. And somebody I went to school with had a kid there. And they came up and gave me a big hug and said, thank you for giving my kid a scholarship, helping my kid. That's probably been the greatest joy. Somebody I went to school with. Right. I'm helping their kid go to college, and they really was thankful for that. So, but that's probably the most meaningful thing, to be honest with you.
With the exception of that $3 million donation, for the most part, it seemed, tried very hard to keep your, philanthropic endeavors very private. Like, yes. You don't want them to get publicity. Why has that been important to you?
Well, because 2 things. If you want to do something good, like people just found out, I don't normally discuss the $3 million, but obviously, first of all, they discussed it because they probably want some more.
Right. But that's not a bad thing either when, stuff like that gets publicized, because that'll encourage other people in similar positions
and encourage more people to call and ask me for money, too. I think, listen, as I told you earlier, I can't believe my life. I can't believe my life. And, Graham, most people live life like this because we're brainwashed. I want to have a big house. I want to have a big car. I want to make a lot of money. I had that when I was 25. And I'm sitting there like, there's got to be more to life than this. And then I said, hey, you know what? I just got to bring as many people along with me for this ride as possible. I says, that's the first, when I go speak to kids, these kids are brainwashed. They're like, how much money you make? What kind of car you got? How big is your house? Like, they think because that's what they see as success. I says, it's all right to be a great secretary. It's all right to be a trash man. It's a very honorable job. But our kids, especially the black kids, they want to be rappers, singers, or jocks because they think like that's what success is. And for me, I want to help as many people as possible. And let's say that's my goal. I don't want to just have a big house and a big car and a lot of money because like I say, I had that when I was 25. And I don't want to just stockpile money. I love being able to help people. I do. I love being able to help people. Now, I'm not going to because I get 100 letters a week. Yeah. I'm not going to try to save the world. Right. But I'm going to try to help as many people as I possibly can.
How much racism still exists, in your opinion, today?
A lot exists today. You see, when I say a lot, you see stuff all the time. And it's sad to me. You see it all the time. And I always say racism is the greatest cancer of my lifetime. Because the notion that I would say another person I've never met before, I don't like that person. That sounds insane. That sounds insane. I mean, think about it. I don't like a white person. I don't like a black person. I don't like a Jewish person. I don't like a Hispanic person. I'm like, you sound like a fool. Like sometimes you see one of those fools on television, you're like, this dude's a fool. Because the truth of the matter is, every ethnic group got scumbags. Every ethnic group got great people. And to put a brush on everything on one ethnic group is just ridiculous. And I'm gonna always be the same. I'm gonna judge every person by their own merits. And that's the way it's gonna be if you're gonna be around me. I don't allow my friends to be racist, sexist. I'm never gonna stand for that.
You've said before that welfare has given the black man an inferiority complex. How so?
Well, I think that welfare has, when you start rewarding people for having kids, it can't help. It can't help. First of all, it's not like they're going to make you a millionaire. Think about that. Like, they've done a terrible job in this country paying people to have kids. And people, number one, they like the money, but they never look at the big picture. They don't give you enough. I don't even know if they give you enough money to survive, to be honest with you. They give you some money, but it just keeps the stereotype going, and it keeps the same situation going for you your entire life.
Muhammad Ali, you've called him your idol, and meeting him the greatest single day of your life. What do you most admire about him?
He took a stance. And the thing, if you go back and look at the story, he didn't want to go to war. And he says, no, I won't go to war. And they even told him, you don't have to go to war. You can do like exhibitions and things like that. He says, no. He says, you guys want me to go over here and kill the Viet Cong. I can't stay at the hotel with white guys. We got separate restrooms. We got separate water fountains. Y'all don't respect me, but y'all want me to go and kill strangers. That, to me, he can't ever, that's why he's always going to be my hero. People have compared us. I said, that's an insult. That's an insult to him. To compare any black man today to what those older black guys went through, that's an insult. We ain't never been through anything. Jim Brown, Bill Russell, Ali, those guys, what they've been through, I always say they did a lot of heavy lifting to make it possible for me to make millions of dollars in the NBA. And from that point on, when I started reading about it, he's been the greatest influence in my life. I hope I'm always able to stand up for the little man. I do. Like I say, it's easy for us to say what we wouldn't do and what we wouldn't do. But I guarantee you this, on my watch, if I saw anybody getting mistreated, I'm going to stand up for them. Anybody.
To what extent does it bother you that current athletes today generally fail to use their platform to speak out for causes or issues they believe in?
First of all, I think you have to be careful because every issue is not worth fighting. I think you have to be very selective. Every issue is not worth fighting. But I think they have a different dynamic today because, man, listen, these guys got the internet. We got the 24-hour news cycle. They didn't have all that stuff. They were just starting to come with the 24-hour news cycle. Everybody now think ESPN's this thing that's been there forever. I was there when they first started. People are like, no, that was not ESPN 1, ESPN 2, ESPN News. They didn't have that when I first started. The NBA wasn't on every night. I tell people, the NBA was tape delayed.
Right. You had to get your grandma a satellite dish to be able to...
Yeah. I mean, so it's a little different for these guys today. There's Twitter, there's Facebook, there's Instagram. So, but I will say this. I love the way the guys stood up to the Donald Sterling thing. I love the way LeBron came forward, Chris Paul, those guys. When something big happened, they got to stand up. But I think
those are the easy situations too, right? When something's so blatantly obvious that
they're not
everybody
easy.
can, or the easier, situations than standing up for something that you know you're likely going to get.
Yeah, that was an easy one. But like I say, you have to be careful. You can't cry wolf all the time.
Yeah.
Like, I'm very selective on what I want to quote unquote go to war on. Like I'll fight. We can talk all day. I'm not worried about the NCAA fired me from college basketball. Screw them. They got to educate these young kids, especially these black kids. I'll go to war for that one. I'll go to war for that. They can fire me. They can call me under the carpet. And I told them when I started doing college basketball, I says, I'm going to talk about your education rates all the time, okay? I'm going to talk about your education rates all the time. Because making all this money on these kids and not educating them is a travesty.
So I know you've said at the end of your Turner contract you're going to retire. I spoke to somebody, retire from broadcasting. I spoke to somebody close to you who said, no way. Your thoughts?
Everybody wants you to keep working because they're not working. They're just getting a residual effect. Graham.
Well, it's not a bad gig. You make a lot of money, work a day or two a week.
Mm-hmm.
Until, playoff time when you have to work more.
Let me tell you something. I got the best job in the world. I work with great people. Got a great boss. But I think 17 years is long enough to do anything. And you have to understand something. This ain't my career. The NBA was my career. Mm-hmm. This is my second one.
Right.
And like I say, I love my job. I love working with Kenny, Ernie, and Shaq. They're great. And the people behind the scenes are amazing. But I do think 17 years, I think that's long enough.
Is it hard to have the same enthusiasm for the job that?
No, because it always changes. I'm never going to get bored at work. But I've been very honest with TNT because I don't want them to be caught off guard. I do. I just think 17 years is long enough. How long do you do it? That's what I asked them. I says,
until you don't want to do it anymore.
But I told them, if I just keep signing a new contract, I'm going to keep doing it forever. And like I say, okay, my contract, I set my contract up where it ends when the NBA deal ends. So I think that's only fair.
What do you think will be next for you?
I would like to run an NBA team. That's my next goal. I think I'll be good at it. I think I've studied really hard. I think I know basketball. I just got to surround myself with a good supporting cast, which I'm going to do that. I'm not afraid of confrontation. Obviously, I'm going to have to make the final decision, but to be successful in anything, you have to have people around you who are going to be honest with you. That's the biggest problem with celebrities. See, most of the people around you, they're on the payroll. And they're never going to tell you you're wrong. They're never going to disagree with you. And I don't run my inner circle like that. One thing I demand out of my friends, if they see me do something stupid or wrong, they better tell me. Because I've seen so many celebrities I've been around, and you see them doing something stupid, and the people around them, they're on the payroll. They're not going to tell them to stop doing stupid stuff. And as I told you earlier, if you're around somebody like that, it's not a matter if they're going to fall off the cliff. It's just a matter of when.
You think you go right in from broadcasting
I hope so.
into running a team?
I hope so.
No break?
No break. But like I say, the TV thing is great. I love it. But like I say, how long do you do it? Let's just say hypothetically, I sign a contract extension for, let's say, 3 years or 5 years. In 3 years or 5 years, I'm going to be saying the same thing. Right. I've been doing this a long time. So I think the way I structured my contract was, okay, how long do we have the NBA? We got it for 2 more years. I says, okay, sign my contract until then, and then I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you've had a fascinating life, and I appreciate you being
No
so
problem,
open
man. It's
today
amazing,
with
isn't it?
Your stories.
Thank you.
And
I'm glad we did
it's been
this,
a
man.
long time coming.
I'm glad we did it,
Thank
though.
you very much.
Yeah. Thank you.